You're listening to the Radical Ideas Podcast. Episode 8, Batman. We start off showing the Gotham skyline, and the bat signal is projected against the clouds. The camera pans down to the Gotham docks, and we hear gunshots. We cut into the scuffle, and we see a criminal running away, firing at the shadows. The criminal is wearing an outfit split down the middle, each half of the suit being a distinct different color. He's looking around scared, and he says out loud, "I know you're there, Bats." And as he says this, a caped, shadowy figure drops down behind him. The criminal whips around, the flashlight of his gun illuminating Dick Grayson, Robin. Robin punches the man out, saying, "Well, not quite, but close enough." Dick pulls the zip ties out of his utility belt and restrains the unconscious goon, propping him up against a shipping container. As he is wrapping up, a voice pops in through his earpiece, and we hear Batman. "Robin, I'm done on my end. What's your status?" Robin responds, "Just tied up the last of my guys. Where's the ETA and the cops?" And Bruce says, "Right now." And the sound of sirens can be overheard over the sound of the docks. A squad car pulls up, and stepping out of it is Commissioner James Gordon and Detective Harvey Bullock. Bullock sees to the restrained man at Robin's side as Gordon approaches the boy. Gordon nods in greeting, saying, "Robin." Dick nods back, saying, "Gordon." The two shake hands, and Gordon asks, "Where's the old man?" And we hear the swooping of a cape, and then, "I'm here." And appearing out of nowhere is Batman. Gordon turns, and the two men nod at each other in greeting. Gordon gestures to the restrained man and says, "Story?" Bruce responds, "Arms shipment coming into the city. Two-Face and Penguin's men were fighting over it." Gordon asks, "Those two aren't exactly starving for weapons, so what was worth fighting over?" "These," says Batman, as we instantly cut to a container with a false bottom. It is removed, and we see the container is full of high-grade laser weapons. Refined versions of the ones that we saw during the events of the Superman movie. Anti-metahuman weapons. It's getting worse. Gordon sighs. It was only a matter of time. Do we know who's bringing these in? Robin pipes in, "Not yet, but with a shipment like this, someone's going to know something." Gordon asks, "How long are you thinking before it's complete chaos in the streets? A week? 2? Bruce responds, 1 at best. Dick pops in, adding a PS to Batman's sentence, saying, "Of course we're going to make sure that it doesn't spill out onto the streets." Gordon thanks the boy and turns back to Bruce, saying, "This isn't the only reason I'm here tonight. It's happening." And he wants a last confession, and you specifically requested it be to you. Batman nods and asks how long they have. Gordon immediately steps into the driver's seat of the patrol car, saying, "We'll be lucky if he's still breathing when we get there," and he gestures for Batman and Robin to join him. The dynamic duo enter the police cruiser just as a larger police van shows up to pick up everyone that Batman and Robin detained tonight. The trio head out and arrive at Gotham General Hospital, where we see police officers guarding an entire floor of the building. Gordon and the Crusaders step through the guards, who are all very clearly comfortable with the dynamic duo's presence. This is clearly not the first time something like this has happened. The three men reach their destination, a hospital room at the end of a hallway, with an old man strapped to life support. His medical charts read C. Falcone. Carmine Falcone lays in the bed, breathing heavily. He has 3 claw scars on the right side of his face, and he peels an oxygen mask back when Batman steps into the room. He coughs out a strained chuckle, and he says, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." Batman looks to him and says, "Falcone." Carmine nods at him and says, "I know you and me never got to tussle ourselves, but I always respected you. You got a code. The city needs that. This," Carmine gestures out to the city streets disapprovingly, "what the clown turned this city into, it needs that." Enough about now. Let's talk about old times. Batman steps closer and Carmine begins his confession. "I don't think I got enough time left to get past everything, so I'm just doing the headlines tonight, capiche? Okay, let's do this." Gordon hands Bruce a stack of cold cases for Bruce to check. Batman begins flipping through them and gets to one. The Gotham Gazette reporter who went missing in '95. Carmine nods. "That was me. He caught me stepping out on my wife, God rest their soul. He tried to blackmail me. His body's in the foundation of the Corner Street Deli." Carmine coughs. His heartbeat monitor slows. Batman flips to another case. The Gretzky murders. Carmine shakes his head. "No, it wasn't me. No women, no children. Those were the rules. If we had a problem with the guy, we dealt with him directly." Carmine breathes again, but this time more shallow and restrained. Time passes, and we see a small stack of cold cases in a new evidence pile, and a larger stack in the still nothing pile. Carmine is panting hard. He clearly doesn't have much time left. And Bruce flips to the next case file. The Waynes murder. And he freezes. Robin notices this, and Batman asks, "Thomas and Martha Wayne?" And Carmine slowly nods. "Tommy, big shot doctor. He and his wife, they started a charity that was helping some of the more disenfranchised of our fair city become less so. It was bad for business. So I spoke to the guy, told him what would happen if he didn't start doing things differently." Batman's fists clench. "You know what he said to me? He told me, 'I don't deal with criminal scum like you.' Can you believe that? He called me scum. To my face. Honestly, I respected that about him. Well, that's not something I could take lying down. So I sent one of my new guys after him, but it all went wrong. He got antsy or something. Ended up killing the wife, too, right in front of the kid. I always felt bad about that one." After a beat, Carmine gestures for a new case file, but Batman asks, "His name?" Carmine stops. "Huh?" "The man you sent to kill the Waynes. What was his name?" Gordon tries to get Batman's attention, urging him to get Carmine to keep talking about the other crimes. There are many more cold cases that he could wrap up, but Batman ignores his friend. Carmine looks confused. "Look, kid, that was 30 years ago." "Tell me the name." Batman approaches Carmine, grabbing the scruff of his hospital gown. Robin and Gordon both yell at Batman to let Carmine go. Carmine coughs as his heart rate monitor begins to beep irregularly. "Buddy, calm down," he coughs out. "Spit it out," Batman shouts. Robin grabs Bruce's arm and urges him to stop, but Bruce yells again, "Tell me his name!" And Carmine Falcone coughs out his final word. "Chill!" And with a loud beep, the monitor goes flat, and Carmine Falcone is dead. Bruce releases his grip of the lifeless gangster and turns around. Gordon yells at him, "And what in the hell was that? You're the rough-up an 83-year-old man?" As Gordon keeps talking, Bruce walks right through him, shoulder-checking the commissioner on his way out the door. Gordon is shocked and yells back, "We could have gotten more out of him!" Robin tries to calm Bruce down, but Bruce pushes past even Robin and heads out to the hospital roof, leaping from it and gliding away. Robin and Gordon stand on top of the hospital, looking at the silhouette of the Bat Cape disappear into the distance. Gordon says, "I haven't seen him like this in years." Robin agrees, saying, "I'll try to keep him in line." Gordon nods to the boy and says, "You're a good kid. He pats Robin on the back, and Robin leaps off the building, following his mentor. And we cut to the Bat Cave. We see an older, bald man in a suit and a tie sitting at the Bat computer as the Batmobile pulls in. Alfred Pennyworth stands up to greet the boy he raised. "Welcome back, Master Wayne." And he notices a distinct lack of Robin at his side, saying, "Did you leave Dick behind?" Batman pushes past Alfred and sits at the computer. "I have a name." Alfred turns back, puzzled. "You what?" Bruce pulls his cowl off and sits at the computer. "Carmine Falcone passed away tonight, and in his dying words he confessed to being the one who put the hit out on Thomas and Martha Wayne." Alfred is speechless. We hear the sounds of a motorcycle pulling in, and Robin appears on his bike. Taking off his helmet, he says to Bruce, "You left me behind out there." But Bruce doesn't respond. He is cross-referencing the name Chill against his database, coming up with lists of suspects. Robin approaches Alfred. Robin asks, "Have you ever seen him like this?" And Alfred solemnly nods. Robin approaches Batman, telling him, "Bruce, I understand that this is important, but we need to look for who's bringing the weapons into the city. That needs to be our priority right now." And Batman snaps at him. "Our priority? No. This is my priority. Don't tell me how to run my mission." Alfred snaps up in defense of Dick. "Bruce, do not speak to him that way." And Bruce turns his attention to Alfred. "No! This is my mission. My family. I will not be told that this isn't a priority." Alfred huffs at his son and urges Dick away from him. "Come on now, son. Best leave the bat to his brooding." And Alfred and Dick walk away from the obsessed Batman. Dick heads upstairs to his bedroom to try and catch some sleep before his day tomorrow. He heads into his bedroom and picks up his phone, where we see a text thread between him and Barbara Gordon. They are telling each other that they love each other and wishing each other a good night. Dick smiles and falls asleep. The next morning, Dick heads downstairs dressed in his school uniform, where he finds breakfast prepared by Alfred. As Dick is eating, he notices that Bruce's seat is empty. Looking to Alfred, Alfred again nods wordlessly, and Dick sighs. He finishes eating before heading into the library. He heads to the grandfather clock against the wall, and enters a code in a hidden panel. The clock opens up, revealing a long, winding stairway down to the Batcave, and at the bottom, we see Bruce, unmoved since last night. With dark circles under his eyes, his list of suspects linked to the name Chill has shortened significantly. Dick speaks up, reminding Bruce that all-nighters like this aren't healthy, and he asks how the investigation is coming. Bruce says, "I've narrowed it down, about a dozen candidates, but none of them look right. Their eyes don't look right." Dick tells Bruce, "I'm sure something will come up." And that's when he asks Bruce about the anti-metahuman weapons, and if he's made any progress on that, and Bruce simply responds, "No." Dick tries to gentle parent his parent and tells him, "Look, I know that this case matters to you, but the weapons and the gangs are threatening lives right now. Let's figure that out first, and then we can work this case together." And Bruce again loses it. "This case doesn't just matter to me. This is the only one that does. This is the question that's been burning in the back of my mind for 30 years. And Dick says, "I understand that." But Bruce cuts him off, saying, "No, you don't. You don't know what it's like living with something like this." And Dick says, "Of course I don't, because you solved my parents' murder in 3 days. You don't get to leverage the closure you gave me against me. I get that you're mad, but I know exactly the way you felt, because it happened to me too. But that's why this is different. We're in this together. Let's deal with Penguin and Two-Face. Let's stop the weapons coming in, and then we can focus on this case together." Alfred steps into the cave, seeing just the last few minutes of this argument, just in time to catch Bruce scowling at Dick, telling him, "You're going to be late for school," as he turns back around and sits at the computer. Alfred takes Dick away back up the stairs, and stares daggers into the back of Bruce's skull. Alfred drives Dick to school, and as they're going, Dick says to Alfred that he is worried about Bruce. Bruce has had bad days before, but this is something else entirely. And Alfred says to that, "I've seen this before. There's a wisdom that is woe, and there's a woe that is madness." Dick nods, saying, "Moby Dick." And Alfred says, "Yes. This case is Bruce's white whale. It brings about an obsession within him. He won't sleep, he won't eat, he just works. I'll speak with him when I return home. Can't have Ahab go down with the whale." And Dick nods, saying, "I love you, Alfred." And Alfred pulls Dick in for a hug, saying, "I love you too, my boy." And Dick hops out and heads into school, where we see a meet-up with Barbara Gordon. They give each other a quick kiss and head into class together. Barbara asks him if he had another late night last night, and Dick nods. And Barbara says, "Gosh, I get that Bruce wants you to take over the company for him one day, but this is ridiculous. How many nights in a row is this now?" And Dick shrugs, saying, "I don't know, but, the work is important. We're helping people." We then cut back to the Batcave, where Bruce has just punched a hole through one of the Bat computer monitors. He has just cleared every single potential suspect off of his list. None of them match the man that he remembers from that night. And this is again when Alfred walks in. "Master Bruce, this is no way to carry yourself." "It was none of them, Alfred. Every single one of them has an alibi for that night." "Well, then perhaps this would be a good time to step away from the investigation for now. Carmine Falcone was the one who ordered it, and he spent the last 30 years in prison. You have every right to be upset, but your outbursts of late are unacceptable." "Unacceptable? You stand there calling my reaction unacceptable when you and Dick are the ones telling me to let a murderer run free. You know that's not what we're asking." "No, but you want me to prioritize potential danger over a proven one." "We want you to use your head. This isn't like you, Bruce. You're not an angry young man in a war against crime anymore. You're a father. You're a symbol for the people of this city." "I am a symbol for the people. When I go out there at night, I am the only thing standing between the innocent and the predatory. When a mugger or a thief stop to think twice, that is fear, and that is what I am to them. There's a reason the criminals breathe easier when the sun rises. Because I am the darkness. I am the night. I am vengeance. And I will have mine." Bruce throws his cowl back on and storms out, hopping into the Batmobile and driving off into the city. Back with Dick and Babs, school is out, and they are at their after-school gymnastics team. The two of them are clearly in a league of their own against the rest of their team. We see Dick perform a flip that he had performed the night previously as Robin, landing it perfectly. Barbara performs a similar trick, and we see that she is wearing a purple and yellow leotard, while Dick is wearing a blue and yellow one. As they are doing their practice, Barbara asks Dick what's wrong, because he has just seemed off all day. And Dick vents to her, but just how stubborn Bruce is. He insists that we work together, but then yesterday, Bruce blew off an important project to work on a personal one, and he's not even letting me help. Barbara asks him what he thinks he should do, and Dick says, "I think I should just work on the important one by myself." Barbara agrees. If this project is going to help people and save lives, then Dick should absolutely work on this one. Bruce will understand. And then, as they pack up their things to leave practice, we see them pass a memorial to their deceased coach, Jack Drake. We see a picture of Jack with Dick and Barbara all holding a trophy together. That trophy on display in the cabinet right next to it. Dick and Barbara say goodbye to the memorial as they leave the school. "Bye, Coach." As they walk outside, we see the Batmobile race past a few blocks away. Barbara comments, "Batman's out early today." The gymnastics duo turn and look down the street to the setting sun. And as they do, Alfred Pennyworth pulls up in a car to pick the two up. He hops out and opens the door for them, gesturing them inside. bowing slightly to Barbara as she enters. "Miss Gordon." "Thank you, Alfred," she says as she steps into the car, and the trio drive off. Back with Batman, we see from his point of view, he is using the detective vision from the Arkham games, and he is staring at an older man getting a hot dog on a street corner. His detective vision IDs the man as Mickey Sullivan, low-level former member of the Falcone crime family who was locked up when he was a teenager, released 10 years ago. He walks away eating his hot dog, but as he goes to take another bite, a bat grappling hook snares around his ankle and pulls him up several stories into the air, and he finds himself dangling from a large stone gargoyle. Mickey is screaming as Batman approaches him from the ledge below to begin an interrogation. "Mickey Sullivan, served 24 years for aggravated assault. Known associate, Carmine Falcone." Mickey screams, "Oh God! Oh Jesus, what is this? Are you gonna kill me? Please, I swear, I've changed. I don't know nothing about Falcone no more." And Batman grabs him and says, "Chill." Mickey is again panicking. "How am I supposed to relax when you're dangling me from a frickin' gargoyle?" "A name. Chill." Carmine Falcone identified this man, said he was younger, around your age at the time he worked for him. "Who is he?" Mickey is panicking, looking straight down at the streets below. "Oh God, oh my God." Batman grabs Mickey by the hair and pulls him over to face him. "Who is he?" Mickey is crying and panicking. I don't know. He might have just been after my time. He's probably long dead. The clown got most everyone." "Then I guess I have no use for you." And Batman lets a little slack out of the grappling hook, letting Mickey fall a couple feet. Wait! Cobblepot! Mickey screams out as he sobs. Batman draws him back up and asks, "What about him?" Mickey is sobbing as he says, "Cobblepot would know. That little rat knew everything about Carmine's operation. Ask him. Oh my God, just go ask him. Please don't kill me." Batman lets Mickey back down safely to the ground and looks across the city to the bright blue spotlights in the sky which indicate the Iceberg Lounge. And we cut back to the Batcave to see Dick suiting up. Alfred is standing beside him as the two are working the weapons case. Penguin and Two-Face's men were fighting over the shipment. Based on what GCPD found since last night, it looks like Two-Face's men were there first before Penguin's showed up. Which means they were either working with whoever brought the weapons in, or they knew when it was coming. Either way, that's a lead. That's where I'm headed. "Dick, if it were up to me, you wouldn't be doing this." And Dick responds, "I know, Alfred. Saving lives is what heroes do." And Alfred smiles at the boy. "I'll be watching you out there. Eyes on?" And we watch Dick double tap the side of his domino mask. The detective vision contacts in his eyes engage, and his eyes go completely white. Dick nods, saying, "Eyes on," and we see displayed on the Bat computer screen behind them both Dick's point of view. Alfred looks back, confirming it's there, and turns back to his grandson, telling him, "Good luck." Dick hops onto a motorcycle and rides off into the night. And we cut and we see a woman being mugged. But zooming in with a sweeping kick to the mugger's face is Robin, taking the mugger down in a single blow. He hands the purse back to the woman and zip ties the mugger and asks, "Hey, do you know where Two-Face's guys hang out nowadays?" The mugger says, "What? No." And Robin just sighs. He turns back to the woman and says, "Hi, could you call the GCPD and let them know what happened here? And just let them know that I'll send the body cam footage to the usual place?" The woman nods and Robin grapples off. And as he is flying away, the woman shouts out, "Thank you, Robin!" We then cut to a car break-in in progress. The man has a thin strip of metal inside a windshield as he tries to jimmy the lock. And suddenly, he is zipped and hanged upside down from a light post. His cell phone falls out of his pocket as he swings, and Robin steps in, picking it up, looking up to the criminal asking, "May I?" And we see Robin dial 911. "Police dispatch." "Thank you." "Hey, dispatch, it's Robin." "Yep. Car break-in attempt. 34th and Elliott." hanging from a light post. Oh, Robin turns to the criminal. Hey, you don't have any sort of medical condition where hanging upside down for a few minutes will affect you, right? The criminal just shakes their head no. Awesome. Robin returns to the phone call. Yeah, hanging from a light post. Yeah, I'll send the footage right away. Oh, hey, you know what? Good work to you too. Thank you. Click. He looks back to the dangling criminal and asks, do you have any idea where Two-Face's gang calls home recently? The criminal shakes their head no, and Robin sighs, thanking him before zipping off. As he's standing on the rooftop listening to GCPD radio chatter, he overhears just the thing he was looking for. A car chase between members of Two-Face's gang and penguins. Dick hops onto his motorcycle and races off. We cut to the Iceberg Lounge. We see that it is currently closed off, but full of penguins' men, as Oswald Cobblepot is having a meeting about the current gang war with Two-Face. We see in the center of a lounge a massive penguin enclosure full of many different types of penguins and puffins. Cobblepot is addressing his men. Last night was a disgrace. If Dent's men get hands on those weapons, we are done in this city. Somebody find out where these things are coming from. As one of his men stands up to address the group, the lights in the building all go out. Penguin sighs, and all of his men begin to panic and stand up, drawing various weapons. And with a whoosh and a thud, Batman drops down on the table in the middle of this meeting. The men all leap backwards in fear, aiming their weapons at the Bat. Penguin, clearly annoyed, asks Batman, "And to what do we owe this honor?" "Carmine Falcone died last night." "A pity." "Before he did, he gave me the name of a hitman of his. Chill. Who is he?" Penguin lets out a little chuckle. "Sorry, Bats, but you got the wrong type of bird here. I'm a penguin, not a stool pigeon." And Cobblepot raises his umbrella and aims it at Batman, revealing that it is actually a long-barreled handgun. "Now leave, before you see the problem in triggering the fight-or-flight reflex in a flightless bird." Penguin's men all begin to chuckle, growing more confident after their boss's words. "Wrong answer," says Batman. Instantly dropping to the tabletop, he does a spin kick and disarms a thug. He then grabs an edge of the table and with a lurch pulls the entire table over, shielding him and some of the other thugs from the gunfire. Batman zips his way through the thugs, disarming as he goes, tossing their weapons over the glass into the penguin enclosure. He stuns men with his cape, he flips over others, he deftly dodges between their punches, and then throws men in their same direction, using the momentum against them. Seeing this, Penguin orders his twin bodyguards to stop him. As he runs to his office in the back, the twins, dressed in pink with long razors extending from special gauntlets on their hands, leap at Batman. Batman dodges between their attacks, the razors scraping against his armor, revealing the armor beneath the fabric weave. The two surround Batman and leap at him, and in a split second, Batman leaps into the air and performs a split kick that would make Jean-Claude Van Damme weep, hitting both women in the face, knocking them out cold. We cut to Penguin's office and see him sitting in a cushy office chair as he's trying to open a safe, but his pudgy fingers keep hitting multiple buttons at once. The safe beeps in error as he fails to open it. Come on, he growls. And suddenly, the door to his office is kicked completely off its hinges, and standing in the doorway is Batman. We cut to over Batman's shoulder as Penguin spins around in his chair with his arms crossed. "Let's see, chill. The name rings a bit of a bell, but that would have been a couple decades back now. Got anything more for me?" Batman's eyes narrow. Penguin panics a bit. "Oh, Joe, chill. Yeah, I remember the kid. I gave him that nickname because he had ice in his veins. Last I heard he was serving time at Blackgate. He took the fall for one of Carmine's lieutenants, punishment for a job that he botched." Batman stares at Penguin wordlessly. Penguin swallows. I think his name was, Frediani, Fratellini, something like that. That's all I remember." Batman takes a step towards Penguin, who jumps backwards in his chair, raising his arms. I swear, that's it." Batman's eyes narrow once again, and he leaves without a word. Penguin exhales in relief. And we cut back outside as Batman is looking up Joseph F. in the criminal database. But as he turns the corner to where he'd parked the Batmobile, he sees that the car is on cinder blocks. The front tire has been removed, and currently trying to undo the rear tire are two young boys with black hair. The younger one stares in awe at Batman and begins tapping the older one on the shoulder. This annoys the older boy as he says, "Tim, stop tapping me, Tim!" But the older boy looks over to where the little one is pointing and says, "Oh, crap." Batman is in disbelief. "How did you?" he begins to ask. But the older boy just shouts out, "Run for it!" And in an insane display of acrobatics, this 12-year-old boy parkours up the alley walls towards the rooftop. As he climbs, Batman looks at the younger boy, and the younger boy says, "I'll stay here." Cutting back to the 12-year-old, we see him look down at Batman still on street level just as he reaches the ledge of the rooftop and pulls himself over it. But we hear a whoosh, and as soon as the boy pulls himself up, he runs face first into Batman. Stumbling backwards nearly off the roof, Batman catches the boy, and then the two safely grapple down back to the alley. Batman lines the two boys up and says, "What are you doing?" The younger boy says, "Stealing your tires." "Tim!" the older boy yells in frustration. "We caught us doing it. Why lie?" "Why are you stealing my tires?" The older boy grumbles, but relents. "To buy food." Batman looks at the two children, and his detective vision looks them up in his system, identifying them within the Gotham City foster care program. Jason Todd. Tim Drake. The boys look at each other in surprise. Batman knows their names. "You two are supposed to be in the foster care program. What are you doing out here?" The boys are silent. Bruce looks them over and notices bruises visible under their sleeves. "You two are going to put the wheels back on my Batmobile, and then you're going to show me where you live." The boys begrudgingly agree and begin to work. As they do, Batman asks them how they managed to get around the Batmobile's security to pull this off. Jason Todd says, "That was Tim." Bruce looks down at Tim Drake, who's clutching a busted Wayne pad in his hands. He holds it out, and we see that he has jailbroken it. "I found the Batmobile's wireless signal using this program, and then I saw that its operating system was actually just a modified version of Wayne OS, so I brute forced my way in and turned everything off." Batman stares at the broken pad as Tim explains all of this, and Bruce is impressed. Jason finishes reattaching the wheels, and the two boys bring Batman back to their home. And we cut to a car chase in progress. We see men wearing Plague Doctor masks in one car, chasing a car filled with Two-Face goons. The cars are firing at each other as they tear through the Gotham streets, and that is when Robin's motorcycle pulls up alongside the car in the back. He dodges out of the way of gunfire from the backseat of the car, and we see him set his motorcycle to autopilot. Robin then catches the arm of a shooter, deflecting a shot meant for his head. He disarms the man and hurls the gun back inside, hitting the man in the head. He reaches into his utility belt and pulls out a small canister. He throws it in the car, and after a beat, it explodes into an elephant toothpaste-like concoction, completely filling the car and bringing it to a stop. Dick speeds up and catches the car full of Two-Face's crew. "It's about time! I've been looking for you boys all night!" The goons try and shoot at him, but Robin pulls out a bow staff, and it sprouts a thin metal shield, deflecting the incoming shots. As they fire, Robin stands atop his moving motorcycle, and as the men go to reload, Dick leaps off, diving through the window into the back seat of the car. And we get an in-car fight scene, as Robin fights off the two men, dodging between their punches, causing them to hit each other, wrapping the unused seat belts around the men, and slamming them back into each other, eventually slamming one of their heads against the front passenger seat, knocking the final man unconscious. He zip-ties the men in place and buckles them in before climbing up to the front passenger seat. He looks at the driver and says, "So, why don't you take me to see your boss?" The driver pulls out a gun and tries to aim it at him, but Robin instantly disarms him, throwing the gun in the back seat with the others. "Really?" The goon looks ashamed for even trying, and he drives Robin to Two-Face's hideout. Back with Batman and the boys, they arrive at their home, but home is being overly generous They enter a small one-bedroom apartment, and it is filthy. Mold on the walls, trash everywhere, and we see that the boys are clearly sleeping on the couch beneath a pile of their own dirty clothing. Batman looks disgusted. "Where's your guardian?" The boys shrug their shoulders. We haven't seen her in a few months." "What about your check-ins?" The boys look confused. "A social worker is supposed to check in with you twice a month." Jason's eyes go wide as he says, "I've lived here for years, and I've never had a check-in." Bruce is stunned. He looks around in complete disbelief, and as he does, Tim Drake speaks up. "Can I ask you something?" Jason looks at Tim and says, "Timmy, not now." Batman looks back down at the boys. "Ask what?" Tim looks right at Batman and says, "Are you Bruce Wayne?" Batman is once again stunned. Jason speaks up. Sorry about Tim. He gets these dumb ideas, and Jason turns to see Batman's face. And despite being a professional, an 8-year-old guessing his identity has left Batman with a visible look of shock. "Oh my God, you are! I knew it!" shouts Jason, taking credit for Tim's idea. "Batman is Bruce." Batman holds out his hand to silence Jason, who catches himself and quiets down. "Why would you think that?" Batman asks Tim. Tim swallows nervously, saying, "I watch clips of you and Robin sometimes, and this one time Robin did this flip, and I thought it was really cool, and it's one that I'd only ever seen this kid, Dick Grayson, do before, and so I figured, well, if Dick Grayson was Robin, that would probably make you Bruce Wayne." "And the gadgets," Jason chimes in. Batman turns to the older boy. "The cops are totally using stuff you had like 5 years ago, and the cops get all their stuff from Wayne Tech." Batman stares at these two boys. "You said you needed food." The two boys look a little ashamed as they nod. Batman reaches into his utility belt and pulls out a blank black card. "This will buy you more than the tires would." Jason grabs it and stares at it in awe. "Is this a Bat credit card?" Batman smirks. "More or less. I won't report it stolen, so get whatever you need." And suddenly, Batman's detective vision pings. The system has found a match for Joseph F., and it brings up a mugshot of Joseph Frediano. And Batman is paralyzed as he stares into the eyes of the man who killed his parents 28 years ago. The boys look at each other in confusion as they cannot see the augmented reality screen that Bruce is staring at. We see as Batman looks at the file that lists that Frediano has no registered address and no known living associates. "I have to go," Batman growls as he begins to storm out. "Wait!" Tim yells out. Batman turns around, frustrated at being delayed, and Tim backs away sheepishly for a second before saying, "Thank you for finding who killed my dad." And Batman blinks, his anger ebbing for a moment. We see his detective vision bring up Tim Drake's file again, and Batman opens the parents' file, and we see the name Jack Drake. He opens it, and we see the picture from earlier of Coach Jack with Dick and Barbara from a few years earlier. Jack Drake, the coach. That's why you recognized Robin. I was really sad when my dad died, but when I found out you and Robin caught the guy who did it, that made me happy." Batman looks down at the boy before him, and once again looks around the room, at the state of life that this boy he'd helped was living. "You're welcome," Bruce says, his body filling with a sense of guilt as he leaves these two boys. And we cut back to Dick Grayson just as the driver pulls up outside the warehouse Two-Face is currently calling home. Dick thanks the driver and steps out of the car, casually chucking another elephant toothpaste grenade inside as he leaves. We hear Alfred speak up in the comms, warning Dick to be careful. Dick cases the warehouse and makes a plan of attack. He sneaks in through the rooftop and leaps between the support beams near the ceiling. Dick identifies Two-Face's office, and waits for the perfect moment to sneak inside. When the man watching the door steps away to use the restroom, Dick drops down from the ceiling and heads in. And we see Harvey Dent looking at a battle map of Gotham City. "Hello, Harvey." Robin breaks the silence. Harvey's eyes go wide as he says, "Boy Wonder." He flips his trademark coin, and it comes up heads. Two-Face grumbles and turns around. "What can I do for you?" "The anti-metahuman weapons being brought into the city. What do you know about them?" "Who says I know anything about them?" "Cut the crap. Your men got to the shipment first. You either work for the person bringing them in, or you know who it is." "Conjecture." "Elementary. But this isn't court, and you're not a lawyer anymore. Spit it out." Two-Face flips his coin again, catching it in his hand before looking at the result. "Intimidation is the big man's thing, kiddo." Dent opens his hand, revealing the damaged tails side of his coin, and he says, "Kill him." Stepping from the shadows is a hidden Two-Face goon who hits Robin in the back of the head with a pipe. Robin is disoriented, and we see blood begin to trickle from the wound. Robin and this goon fight, but as they do, Two-Face pulls out a gun and begins firing at the Boy Wonder. A couple bullets hit Robin's suit, but it is bulletproof, but it still knocks the wind out of him. Robin leaps out of the room and is beset upon by the entire warehouse full of men, and we watch as Dick Grayson single-handedly fights off most of them. But the surprise attack slowed him down. He's taking hits. Alfred is screaming in his ear, "Get out of there, now!" And he sends Dick's bike to pick him up. Dick flips over the men, disarming those with guns, but a few with knives manage to get in between the armor plating of his suit, and we see as one knife is buried deep inside his abdomen. Robin winces in pain, but pushes through, eventually making it to the door just as his motorcycle arrives. Dick collapses onto it and holds on as it drives him back to Wayne Manor. Two-Face's men run outside after him and fire at him as he flees. Dick Grayson loses consciousness as Alfred begs him to hold on through the comms. And then we cut to just outside Wayne Manor, and see as Barbara Gordon is driving up to surprise Dick. She has made brownies and is hoping that since he said he'd be working on his project alone tonight, that an unannounced drop-in would be appreciated. But as she's driving up the winding road towards the manor, Robin's motorcycle rushes past her, and she recognizes it. Worried as to why Robin is racing towards Wayne Manor, she speeds up and follows the bike. She follows it as it pulls off a secret road, and eventually she watches as it drives through a waterfall heading underneath the manor. Barbara parks just outside to the side of that road and heads in the waterfall. She steps past the water and she follows the sounds of the motorcycle into the cave, hearing as large pneumatic doors open. Barbara turns the corner just in time to see the cave wall itself open up, revealing the Bat Cave. And Alfred Pennyworth rushes outside towards the injured Robin, which Barbara now realizes is her boyfriend. "Dick!" she screams out. Alfred, who is pulling the unconscious boy off the bike, screams out, "Miss Gordon?" Barbara runs up and sees Dick, beaten and bloodied, and with a blade still sticking out of his abdomen. Barbara begins crying, asking what happened, and Alfred said there's no time to explain, and asked Barbara to help him. They drag Dick inside, and we see a medical table in one of the corners of the Bat Cave. Barbara is in awe of her surroundings, but still manages to listen to everything Alfred is asking of her. The two of them place Dick on the table as Alfred preps for surgery. Barbara asks him, "You're going to operate?" And Alfred nods. "Decades in special forces. I'm intimately familiar with combat medicine. It doesn't appear too bad, but we need to close that stab wound." Alfred finishes scrubbing in and begins. He cuts through Robin's shirt, revealing the wound properly. He removes the blade and inspects the cut. He pulls away and has Barbara apply pressure. As she does, Dick begins waking back up in pain. Alfred looks at the wound and says, "It's a clean stab. I'll disinfect and stitch it up." "I'm sorry, son." As Alfred applies the disinfectant to Dick, he screams in pain. Barbara asks the now conscious Dick, "What is happening? You're Robin? Is Bruce Batman? What is all of this?" Dick and Alfred see no point in hiding anything from her anymore, and Alfred speaks up. "Yes, my master is the Batman, and young master here is Robin." Barbara is hurt. How could he keep this from her? This is the special project Bruce has you working on? Dick nods as Alfred begins to stitch him up. Alfred hands Barbara back some cleaning pads and asks her to see to the wound on the back of Dick's head. Barbara agrees and yells at Dick for lying to her so long about this, and Dick apologizes. He knows it was wrong to keep a secret, but revealing his secret would also expose Bruce, and that isn't his secret to tell. He asks if she's mad at him, and Barbara says, "Of course I am. You lied, and then you got hurt, you jerk." Dick looks heartbroken, apologizing again for the lies, and he says that he understands if she breaks up with him for this. But Barbara says, "Oh no, you are not getting off that easy. I find out my boyfriend has been lying to me this whole time, and that lie was because he was secretly moonlighting as my superhero crush. I love you, you stupid idiot, and you are going to have to pay me back forever to apologize for this." Dick and Barbara look at each other with tears in their eyes. But this sweet moment is cut off by the sound of the approaching Batmobile. It pulls in and parks, and Batman steps out, saying, "Computer, begin CCTV sweep for Joseph Frediano. Pull everything we have. Start in Gotham, move out from there." And Batman freezes when he sees the trio in the corner. "What is this?" And Bruce stares directly at Barbara. We see fury building up in his face. Then he sees the injured Dick being stitched back up, and that fills him with sadness, anger, and concern. Bruce is boiling over with emotion. Dick starts to go off, but Alfred cuts him off. "What's happening now is your son went out on a mission alone because of you, and this is what happened for it. Ms. Gordon here just happened to arrive just as Master Grayson was returning, so yes, forgive me for allowing her to help her bleeding boyfriend into the cave." Bruce stares at Alfred. "Her father is the commissioner. The mission is compromised." Barbara speaks up. "I won't tell my dad." Batman stares at her. "Batman, you do so much for the city, and you do it well, and you do it right. And she looks over at Dick. You're heroes." Alfred smiles at this, but Bruce is still furious. He storms over to Dick, radiating rage, but as he looks him up and down, all he can ask is, "How do you feel?" Dick shrugs and winces in pain, saying, like I'm gonna need some time off of work." Batman doesn't laugh at the joke. "You worked the weapons case alone?" Dick nods. "And you let him?" He glares at Alfred. Alfred shamefully nods as well. "Where is Two-Face's hideout?" Dick tries to speak up. Where? Dick looks down, defeated. "Warehouse near the North Docks, just off 5th. Batman turns and leaves, hopping into the Batmobile and driving away. Barbara is stunned. Is he usually like that? Dick shakes his head. "No. It's just..." Alfred once again finishes the sentence for the young master. "He finally found out the identity of the man who murdered his parents." Barbara is shocked, and the men nod in agreement with her. Alfred sighs. "I'm afraid this is all my fault. My father was the family butler before he passed, so I'd met Bruce a handful of times before the Waynes brought me on. He used to smile. He used to laugh. But that boy is gone. The entire Wayne family died that night in the alley, and the boy I took home was different. I didn't know how to raise him. I was a soldier, and I was scared for him, so I raised him like that. I didn't want him to fail again, so I started to train him. And after I taught him everything I know, I indulged him to keep going. And it turned into all of this," Alfred says, gesturing to the Batcave. I kept along with it. I couldn't fail him again, and I'm afraid I've only made things worse. And Alfred begins to tear up. But Dick pulls him in for a hug. This isn't your fault, Alfred. Alfred and Dick hug it out, and Alfred tidies himself up. He stands, saying, "Let's get you into some clean clothes, and I'll put on a kettle. I'm sure the two of you have much to discuss." And we cut back to Two-Face's warehouse. His men are clustered together, treating their wounds from the fight with Robin. The man who had bashed Dick in the back of the head earlier is also the one who got the most injured during the last fight. We watch as he stands up and heads into the bathroom. And as one goon is walking around the catwalk on the upper level of the warehouse, he is suddenly engulfed in shadow, and he turns just in time to see Batman crash through the warehouse window, skidding to a stop. The man barely has enough time to shout in surprise before Batman leaps at him, slamming his head into the handrail as he leaps off the catwalk down to the first floor of the warehouse, landing before the group of injured criminals. They all pull their weapons back out and begin to fight. But this is pure brutality on Batman's part. Arms and legs are being broken, shoulders dislocated. Batman sends these men flying across the warehouse. The goon from the bathroom steps out to see what is going on, and slinks back inside and locks the door once he sees Batman. Two-Face comes out of his office, guns blazing, as Batman knocks out the last of his goons. Batman dodges out of the way of the hail of bullets, and tanks many of the shots to his armored chest plate, and barrels towards Harvey. He disarms the man, grabs him by the throat, and lifts him off of the ground with one hand. "I'm only going to ask you once, Dent. Who is bringing in the anti-meta weapons into the city?" Harvey is choking. He reaches for his coin and flips it, but Batman catches it mid-air and says, "This isn't a coin toss." Harvey gasps. "His name," he chokes a bit, trying to pull himself up Batman's arm, "is Joe Chill." Batman's eyes widen as he drops Harvey to the ground. Harvey begins coughing violently. "Joseph Frodiano?" Two-Face nods, collecting himself. "After he got out, he took over running guns after the Joker wiped out the Falcones. He kept a low profile, but clearly not low enough." Batman is stunned. "Where is he?" Two-Face collapses back against the wall, catching his breath. "I don't know. He moves around a lot." Batman takes a step towards him, but Two-Face finishes his sentence. "But I know where he will be. Tonight, too. My guys were supposed to provide him protection at the docks for a discount on future orders. We managed to get a couple cases out of there before Cobblepot's men arrived. He's having a rush auction for interested parties. Not too far from here." Batman kneels down, staring Two-Face directly in the eyes. "Where?" And we cut back to Wayne Manor. Dick and Barbara are sitting down at a dining table in the main hall. They have gotten Barbara's brownies out from the back of her car, and Alfred has prepared a fresh pot of tea. He is pouring it for them as Barbara asks, "I have so many questions I don't even know where to start." "Well, the beginning is usually a good place for that," quips Dick. Barbara rolls her eyes at him. "All right, smart guy. Robin, was that your idea or Bruce's?" And Dick shakes his head, saying, "That was all me." Alfred pipes in, "The young master was insistent on it. He asked every day for years before Bruce even agreed to train him. And even then, he wouldn't let me out into the field until I could beat him during training. Not very sporting, given that Master Wayne is one of the deadliest people on the planet." Barbara asks, "But Robin has been active for nearly 2 years." And Dick nods. "Bruce is strong, but I'm faster." "Why Robin? Why not Batboy?" Dick smiles and says, "My mom came up with it." Barbara looks confused, but Dick continues. "When my mom found out she was pregnant with me, she said that a robin came and landed on her finger. So she always called me that when I was little. And you know how my mom and dad and me were the Flying Graysons, and my Uncle Boston was the Dead Man? Well, my mom wanted us to, combine all of the acts. She made these bright, colorful costumes. Mine was this ridiculous one with these green shorts and these pointy boots and this bright red and yellow color scheme. And my dad, he had this insane blue and yellow one with like this huge collar and like a deep V. She really just went all in on these things. And so when I was thinking about how I wanted to go out there, how I wanted people to see me, I chose the robin. Because even though it's not a night animal, they start to sing just before the sun comes up. So when you hear a robin, you know that light is on the way. Barbara is touched by that story. And she asks Dick next, "So, when did you find out that Bruce was Batman?" And we cut to an auction in progress. We see a man with white hair and crystal blue eyes in a dark blue suit. It's Joseph Frediano, aka Joe Chill, now in his late 50s. And he is presenting a weapon to a crowd of Gotham criminals. Minor gangs from around town, all looking to make a name for themselves, looking for something to give them the edge in the ever-evolving world of crime. Joe pulls out one of the sleek laser rifles we saw from before. "Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the LexCorp RS-700. Lightweight, no recoil, and packs quite the punch. Now the rifles themselves, they're not going to cost you that much, but these," and he ejects the fuel cell into his hand, and we see inside it a glowing shard of kryptonite. "This is what's going to cost you. But trust me, it is worth every penny." He reloads the rifle, dials it on to its lowest setting, and aims at a block of metal across the warehouse. He fires a quick burst of 3 shots, and in just those 3, it carves entirely through the metal block. It can punch through 6 inches of steel in 3 bursts on its lowest setting. He then dials the rifle up to its maximum setting and says, "And maybe a man of steel on its highest." Bidding starts at $250. Hands begin being raised, and we watch as Chill's assistant collects the bids. But then a smoke pellet goes off in the middle of the crowd, and the warehouse is filled. One by one, the criminals begin vanishing into the smoke, and we hear the sounds of struggle, gunshots, and sickening crunches. And suddenly we cut to 8 years ago. We see Dick Grayson crying over the death of his parents at Haley's Circus. Dick's voice begins to narrate what we see on screen. "After my parents were killed, things moved really fast. I was taken by foster care, and I was told that Bruce Wayne offered to foster me. Alfred came by to pick me up that day, and suddenly I was all alone in this huge, scary place. And just as Dick walks into Wayne Manor, we cut back to the auction, but Dick Grayson's narration continues. I felt scared and alone, and for the first few days I never even met Bruce. I caught glimpses of him, but never for long. He never even said hi to me." We see as Joe Chill steps back in fear from the gas, and then, stepping out of the smoke towards him, is Batman. Joe Chill fires the laser at Batman, but Batman dodges out of the way and throws a batarang, knocking the rifle from the man's hands. We see the rifle shot ignite a bag in the corner of the warehouse, as Batman follows Chill. Joe Chill runs backwards into his office, but as he manages to get through the door, Batman bursts in through the window beside it, throwing a razor-sharp batarang, just missing Joe Chill's head. "Joe Chill. Oh, God. What do you want?" "Vengeance." We flash back again, inside the 8-year-old Dick Grayson's bedroom. But one night, Bruce woke me up. I didn't know what time it was, and it was storming outside, and as I turned to look at Bruce, he was standing there, soaked from the rain, dressed as Batman. He asked me to follow him, so I did. Back with Batman, he leaps at Chill and slams his head against the wall, breaking the man's nose. He then throws him across the room over his desk. Chill tries to collect himself off of the floor. "What is this? What did I ever do to you?" Batman throws Chill's desk across the room with one arm. "Thomas and Martha Wayne." Chill looks stunned. "What?" 28 years ago. You shot them down in cold blood in the alley behind the Monarch Theater." He picks Chill up off the ground and punches him in the face. "You ripped the pearls off of her neck and then killed her when she tried to fight back. And then you shot him in the head." How do you know this? That was a lifetime ago." "I know. My lifetime." And Batman rips off his cowl. "Oh my god. Oh my god. No, 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 no." Joe Chill begins panicking. "I swore that night that I would never stop. That I would find you and make you pay for what you took from me." Joe Chill begins to sob. "Please, please don't kill me." And we cut back to the past as Dick continues to narrate. "He walked me out to the hallway. He led me to the main stairs and pointed down to the foyer. And there were these men, all tied up. We see as their arms and legs are very clearly badly broken. He told me they were the men that killed my parents and uncle. And he asked me what I wanted to do to them." And we cut back to modern Wayne Manor, with Dick telling Barbara this story. "I was 8, and Batman asked me what I wanted to do. And it's when I realized that Bruce wasn't around this whole time, not because he didn't care, but because he spent all day of those 3 days looking for these men. For me." Back with Batman, he stares at Chill. "Believe me, I want to. I've thought about how I'd do it, too. And years ago, I might have. But not now." And he drops Chill to the ground, pulling his cowl back on his head. Back with Dick, he says, "I realized that in that moment, Batman was testing me. He was seeing if I had what it takes to be a real hero. And so I told him, turn them into the police. He asked me if I was sure that I didn't want to kill them, and I told him no. Because heroes don't kill." We cut back to Bruce as he finishes that sentence. "Just because I would be better off with you dead, doesn't mean the world would be. And it took a real hero to show me that. So I have to be better than myself. I have to be better for him." And suddenly there's an explosion in the back of the warehouse. The fire from that errant laser blast from before has spread and is beginning to engulf some of Chill's weapons stock. Batman turns towards the fire to get the injured criminals out of the building. But Joe Chill stares at him and says, "I'll tell everyone about this. Everyone is gonna know Bruce Wayne is Batman. You are gonna die for this, Bats." And Bruce turns to him saying, "Batman may die for this, but not Bruce Wayne." And he leaps back out the window and begins rushing injured criminals out of the building to safety. Chill takes this opportunity to run for it. Bruce pulls more and more people from the warehouse, making sure they are all alive and, well, enough, as GCFD and GCPD arrive to the scene. As everything is wrapping up, Batman looks around for Joe Chill, but he is nowhere to be seen. And we cut several blocks away. Joe Chill is running. He is panting and exhausted, and he stops in an alleyway to catch his breath. He reaches into his pocket for his phone, but finds that it was completely destroyed in his fight with Batman. He curses and looks around, spotting 2 lowlifes down the alleyway messing around on their phones. Chill approaches them, asking, "Excuse me, fellas, I need one of your phones. I'll make it worth your while." And he pulls out a money clip full of hundreds. He takes a couple off of it and holds it out to them. One of the men turns to him and says, "Yeah, it's the whole stack or no deal, old man." Joe Chill chuckles in disbelief. "Excuse me? Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" The other thug just says, "No," and pulls out a gun, shooting Joe Chill in the chest. Joe Chill falls down, clutching his wound, as these two men start going through his pockets. Joe Chill passes away in a filthy alley in Gotham City. And we cut to a little while later as Batman and the police arrive at Joe Chill's body. Commissioner Gordon and Batman are standing over it, and Gordon asks, "So this was the weapons dealer?" Batman nods. Looks like whoever did this roughed them up pretty bad." Batman says, "That was me." Gordon sighs. "Of course it was." He looks around and sees 2 security cameras nearby. "Yeah, looks like we got 2 cameras with line of sight on this, so this should be an open and shut case." Batman stares at the dead body of the man who killed his parents, and Gordon notices the 1,000-yard stare and snaps Batman back into it. "Long night?" Batman nods, saying that he should get going. Gordon waves him goodbye as Batman climbs into the Batmobile and heads back to Wayne Manor. We cut back and we see that Barbara has stayed the night. She and Dick are tucked in and asleep on one of the many couches in the Manor's living room. And Bruce steps in, still dressed in his batsuit but with the cowl down. And he walks over and he wakes up Dick in the same way that he did 8 years ago. Dick Grayson wakes up and sees Bruce standing over him. "Bruce?" he asks, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. And Bruce leans down and hugs his son. "I'm sorry," Bruce says, holding back tears. Dick fully wakes up for this and hugs his father back. "It's okay." Bruce pulls back and looks at the boy in the face. "Thank you." Dick again looks confused. "For the Two-Face thing?" And Bruce says, "For being my hero." And the 2 men hug once again. Alfred Pennyworth walks down the stairs, having just woken up, and sees this, and he lets out a smile. And we cut to about a week later to the apartment of Jason and Tim. We see that they have filled it with food, stuffed all of the trash into one corner, and are trying to assemble a boxed bunk bed. But as they are, they hear a knock at the door. The voice introduces itself as the foster care inspector. Jason is distrustful. He opens the door but leaves the chain lock in place, saying, "Foster care has never checked in on us before." And the worker behind the door says, "Well, the new system does." Tim Drake pops his head in. "New system?" And the worker nods. Wayne Enterprises took this system over for the city, funding it out of his own pocket. Apparently, he met 2 young boys who opened his eyes to how things were really being run in the city. Tim and Jason look at each other, and they open the door fully. The worker holds out their hands to the boys and says, "Let's get you boys to your new home." The worker loads them into a van with a logo that reads, "Wayne Grayson Foster and Protective Services." The boys sit in the van as it begins to drive. But after a while, the van pulls off and drives away from the city. Jason and Tim look confused, saying that they thought they were going to their new home. And the worker says, "You are." And the van begins the climb up the private road towards Wayne Manor. The boys look out the window and see the manor growing bigger on the horizon, and they begin to cheer. And that is the Batman in my DC Cinematic Universe. Thank you so much for listening.